What is up, everybody, and welcome to the REIL Talks Podcast. My name is Mike Singletary.
And I am Frank Chan, and we are going to be your hosts. And what we're going to do is break down what it takes to live life on your terms through entrepreneurship, specifically real estate investing.
So we're going to hit it hard, the good, the bad, and the real, because that climb, as any entrepreneur knows, is never smooth. So let's get real.
Welcome back, everybody, to another REIL Talks podcast. We're super excited to have you today. And boy, I know I say this every time, but I think it's just because we just keep bringing on some badass people. And it's hard for me not to do an incredible intro to them because they have such incredible stories. But man, before I bring them on, our host today, Mr. Mike Singletary, is here.
What is up? What is up, man? I'm super excited to talk to Pat.
That's right. And Frank here as well. We're definitely bring you guys some insight. Today is all about the inner game, what's in between your two ears and the things that are really preventing you, the thoughts that cross your mind that prevent you from reaching that next evolution of yourself. Who we have here today is no stranger to dominating and showing people how to surpass these roadblocks in their life in order to reach true happiness. Mr. Pat Precourt is here.
Welcome, gentlemen. Happy to be here.
That's what's up. Pat is a personal development and small business strategic performance coach. He's also a speaker, an author, an athlete, an MMA enthusiast. I'm right there behind you on that one. Nice. Owner of the Cage Fitness Center in Rocky Hill, Connecticut. And he's also a husband and a father. Patrick's unique ability is to create massive transformation in individuals and then change that lasts. And that's what I love about you, man. Even after all other efforts have failed. Now, where most mentors and coaches end up focusing on, here's what we do and then here's how we do it, Patrick takes it away way further and focuses on the why we must do it. Okay. And the true difference is what defines achievement, what to do and how to do it from fulfillment, why we do what we do. Okay. Now, one leaves us waiting for the weekend, while the others we live and enjoy every single day like it was the weekend. I love that. Pat, welcome to the show. I'm excited to dive in. We have quite a few things to cover today. And I'm going to definitely kick it off with a question, but I'll let Mike kind of jump in right here with any burning questions he has.
Man, Pat, shit, man, you and I have talked several times and always gone deep, and I love that shit. I could talk to you for hours, right? But one of the things, man, I always wanted to ask, I always wondered, because I love personal development, and I think a lot of people in our audience does too. Matter of fact, a lot of people in our space does, right? And I think, talking from personal experience, the reason why I think that most people love it is because, there's a hole in their life that they're trying to fill for themselves even. Have you found that to be the case in your studies and your practice and stuff like that?
That people have a hole in their lives. I mean, that's one way to shape it. And this show is a real and raw show, right?
It's real raw. You could do whatever.
Real and raw. Yeah. So I'll just get right at it. And so I'll pick on guys more than girls, but this applies to everybody, right? We're so damn caught up worrying about what we think the rest of the world thinks of us or who we should be, that we try to create a persona that matches that. And then we justify saying that I need this for my business or whatever, right? And we lose a sense, Mike, of who we actually are. And the second we step away from being authentic and genuine to us, we lose all our power. We become a nobody.
Yeah.
All in an attempt to be a somebody. It's the craziest paradox we create. And when we stay there long enough, we forget our roots are gone. And then we're like, well, I'm just not passionate anymore. I'm not fiery anymore. I don't have that, that fight in me anymore. No, you've lost connection with who you were meant to be, trying to be someone else. And once that's gone, you lose the fight, you lose that passion, that desire. And this, everybody calls it a midlife crisis. It's much less about a midlife crisis and much more to do with an identity crisis than anything else. I think that's the hole you're talking about.
So when does that identity crisis start? Because when you look at kids, when I'm looking at my kids, they don't have it, right? And so I guess life experiences somewhere starts molding, or maybe their experiences with their family. It all comes with our background, right? To a certain degree. What is your experience on that, man? I mean, is it all childhood? Is it our whole adult life trying to get over shit that we did in our childhood?
Think about this as a child. How old are your kids, Mike?
I got 11, 10, and a 6-year-old.
Okay, so some are in grade school and some are just getting into middle school, right? They are graded and rated on one thing: achievement. That's it. Do you meet this scale? And they try to measure it on one of the worst types of intelligence, which is our IQ, our intellectual intelligence, versus a social intelligence or an emotional intelligence, right? But they train us early on to create self-worth in something external to us, not something internal to us. So something in a game of achievement, but not fulfillment. And here's the problem. And let's just extrapolate that out. So now we build an entire life plan, starting in high school, deciding what college we want to go to based on what job we think is going to pay us the most, right? And we plug in early on. It's all still focused on one thing: achieving external things. Now, when we build a plan on these externals, right, we can achieve at the highest level and end up completely void of fulfillment. And it happens all the time. You ever meet someone who has all the money in the world, but they big drinking problem, smoking problem, coke problem? You're like, what the hell? Who would do that to themselves? Because they're trying to escape the world they're in. Anybody who drinks excessively, smokes, drugs, they do it for one reason and one reason only: they escape who they are. That's the long-term play out of how we raise our kids right now. And then we could get off. We won't get into it today, but we could dive hard into the educational system, the formulation of it, going back to the 4 days, training people to be on an assembly line early on in kindergarten, right? And we never changed that system. From the bells that tell you when you can go to class to the bells that tell you when you can take a break and go on recess and come back for lunch, right? We never changed that. And our entire school system is framed around that. Craziest part of it.
It really is, man. We took our kids out of public and went to private because, we felt that, right, to a certain degree. But then we try to, you can't really depend on any school system, I think, to really teach your kids, especially when it comes to EQ, because they're not really equipped, for stuff like that. And so for my focus, I'd love to hear how you attack it with your kids. Like, I am super EQ. Like, we talk about that all the time. Something just happened to my oldest daughter, and the whole time, I'm trying to burn into her emotional reaction to it, how she could overcome that. Don't make this into some type of, more than it needs to be. You know what I mean? So I'm really interested, because I know you have kids as well. How did you, navigate that process with them?
Yeah. So still, there's no mastery. There's only getting better. And that's for us as adults too, right? Starts with awareness. Most people, many people at least, don't believe that they should be responsible for how they feel. They should, Frank offended me. You upset me, right? And society will hold people accountable for their actions. Like, man, if I run out and I rob a store, I'm going to get in trouble for it, right? But if I get offended or upset or stressed out because somebody else said or did something or showed a sign or something, then no. Let's protect Pat, put him in a safe spot, and let's remove the sign. It must be the sign's fault, right? So society holds people accountable for our actions, but not for the choices we make on how we feel. So, and that's how our kids are being raised, because that's reinforced in school, right? Even by the mere presence of safe spaces, or removing words that you can't say any longer, or books that you can't see any longer, all because they trigger an emotion. So instead of preparing the child how to deal with triggers, understand that they get to choose. Sometimes we can't stop the trigger from happening, but we can always choose how we respond to the trigger. And this is, like I described to my kids, this is what separates us as humans from all other mammals on Earth. No other mammal can stop, pause, think about what they're thinking about. And if that thought is not in alignment with the results that they're trying to get, the outcomes they want, they can plug in a new thought. And every thought has in the subconscious an emotion sitting there waiting, already wired to that thought. That's why it's so powerful. We can pick and choose how we're going to feel next, because an emotion, once we think about it, once we put it in our conscious mind, it gets pulled out into a feeling. And now we're feeling and thinking in alignment. And if those thoughts and feelings are in alignment with what we're trying to achieve or the outcome we want, it can't help but to start affecting the actions that we take. So now we think, feel, and act in alignment with what we want. We're creating our future in the moment, in the present today. That's a level of emotional intelligence kids have to understand.
It's such a hard loop because shit, I'm 53 years old and I think I just figured that shit out, right? I mean, within the last, I would say realistically 3 years or 4 years where I felt really like got control of the loop. But as a kid or as maybe a not, because I know people that are high achievers, man, super high achievers, they don't think like that. Right. They're just straight ahead and they don't have the same hurdles or they might even be happy. But, you know, I guess I'm going to bring that back to as a kid, they're just dealing with their emotions. Or what if somebody that doesn't have the high level of emotional intelligence, how do they, you know, create that loop and get it to work for them?
Are you saying how do you teach the kid to do it or how do you do it yourself?
I mean, I think I've done it myself through experience and just my experience and maybe my age, truthfully. Mm-hmm. But with a kid who doesn't really have the experience behind them and they're all emotion, right? Because that's what kids are, right? They're all emotion.
That's the society they're raised in.
Right,
the society that supports that behavior, no doubt.
Yeah. So how would you close that loop or bridge that loop with them, you know what I mean, quicker or help them? Because you really can't do it for them, obviously, right?
Yeah. So no, you can't do it for them. So what you're ultimately asking, and let me just put it in different words, right? Because it has a lot to do with how I get people to sustainably change behavior, right? In order for them to do this without you, right? Because if you're on them all the time and you're with them when they're experiencing emotion and you're talking them and walking them through it, yeah, you can get them to do it, right? But how do you create that sustained behavior, right? That habit of EQ, right? And it comes down to we have to alter a belief. They have to believe that they are in control, that no one else can do it to them. And if someone angers them, right, we let them in. They can't come in without our permission. They just won. They got one up on us and we let it happen. We have to get them to fundamentally believe that they're that powerful. Once we get there, the rest just starts playing out. Because now they're going to question, dude, does this emotion, I don't want to be sad right now. And you're making me sad. In our kids' world, they get a text message showing that everybody else is at the social gathering except for them, right? And that's just one of those little emotional weapons that kids use, particularly girls, to assault each other, right? And it makes your kid feel bad. But they get to choose this, right? And giving them the power to say, no. I don't have to feel bad right now. I can appreciate that I'm choosing to be here. I could drive over there right now, right? I could create a different outcome, but giving them ownership in knowing that emotions are a choice. Now, to be fair, right? I'll say that they're a choice and we're creatures of habit and we're wired and programmed a certain response. And that's like the definition of the trigger, right? So it happens automatically. I didn't even think about it. I didn't choose shit. I just immediately got pissed off. Mm-hmm. Right. Because that's our pattern. You know, the brain makes these shortcuts because it can't sit there and try to calculate all the information that's coming in all the time. So it creates all these little shortcuts. Trigger is not a bad word. It's really synonymous with the word shortcut. A little bit of information. Oh, we've experienced this before. We know what this is. Let's pull out the emotion that goes along with that. And we'll relive the last experience that was just like this one. And that's all an emotion is. It's reliving a past memory, right? So that's how the brain so quickly gets triggered. Now, so going to the space of EQ for a second, right? Awareness is number one. You got to first be aware of all this stuff happening. You can't stop something that you're not aware of, right? So one way and all three of my kids do this on a regular basis. And my oldest is 26, okay? Take a week and you map out your highs and lows for the entire week, your emotion and what triggered you, what got you there, right? So what we're doing is we're creating awareness of our patterns. Pattern example. and how untied it is to the circumstance. Go back to 9/11 when our towers were attacked, right? There were typically 3 different types of responses. Now, we all remember where we were and who we were with and that whole event because it's such an emotionally impactful event, right? And all memories recorded in the code of emotion. The stronger the emotion, the stronger the memory. Until all that stuff is glued together. Yeah. If you ever want to speed up the pace of acquiring a new habit, increase the emotional engagement during the exercise, and the habit will be recorded in the subconscious that much faster. But that aside, 9/11, towers get attacked, right? Some people got really sad because immediately they associated those planes crashing with death and people losing their lives, right? That's one response. Another response, this group of people got extremely angry, right? We're getting attacked. We got to fight back. Go get the guns. There's somebody that's got to pay for this, right? And then there's a third group that got really afraid. We're under attack. What's going to happen next? Where does it stop? So you have one event, but 3 distinct different emotional responses. And those are 3 different groups of people that are just wired differently. One event, different responses. And they didn't choose, notably, they didn't choose in the moment that response. It's how they've been wired to respond. Does that make sense? So now bring it forward here, right? How does that apply to all this? We track our behaviors every week. We track our emotions every week, our highs and lows, and what caused them. Okay, this is an important part. Because once we know what caused them, we can see them coming. Once we see them coming, we can get out in front of them. And we can also remap them. An example of that would be this. And this is just a true example of me. Like I used to be a complete asshole with road rage, not gonna lie. Okay. Like I was an ass, you know, you cut me off, then somehow I got to get you back for that because I'm thinking you're an ass and you intentionally cut me off and you stole my position, whatever I was thinking, right? The mind does weird things.
Yeah.
So now picture this. You're getting off an exit. It's a lot of traffic. You're getting off the exit. Right about the end, you're about to get off and somebody comes zipping in and cuts you off, scoots in front of you. If you struggle,
kick their ass, Pat?
What's that?
Did you kick their ass, Pat?
That could result in an engagement, right? That is unnecessary, right? Or you give them the finger, you're honking on the horn, whatever, right? All not necessary. All because of a story that I'm allowing to play in my head about this person, about what he just did to me or she did to me, right? Now, what is the possible outcome of that story? Well, you could get in trouble. We could get in an accident. We get in a fight. I could get shot. A lot of things could happen. Good. What would most likely happen, though, we'll get to the bottom of the exit. He'll take a right and go home, and I'll take a left and go home, and I'll still be fuming. And I'll walk into the front door. I'll open the door. I'll walk in. My wife and kids will be there, and all of that energy will come pouring in the house long before I even get to them. And they'll feel that before they see me. And then I'll say something to my wife, and she'll respond matching my energy in a tonality, which will then just light me off. And before long, we're in a big fight and the night's burnt down. And all I really wanted to do is get home, have a glass of wine and chill with the wife and kids. That's possibility number 1. Possibility number 2, I did a little work. I remapped the trigger, right? I put a new meaning to the trigger. You say, well, what example? What if that dude getting off the exit, he didn't try cutting me off. He had just gotten a call from his wife. His wife's sitting at home with a 2-year-old daughter. Daughter fell, cut open her head, bleeding everywhere. And he's rushing home to get the daughter to the hospital. Wife's all freaking out. He's all freaking out. He's got one thing on his mind, getting his daughter safely to the hospital. So he's flying home. He doesn't even know there's traffic on the road right now because he's just blinded to get home, right? What if that was the scenario, the true scenario, and I knew that to be true? Well, I'd be like, I'd slow down. I'd give him space. I'd be like, dude, good luck with this, man. I'll say a prayer for your daughter. I'd be grateful that he didn't hit me, that I'm not down in the gutter. I'd be rolling down my windows, turning up the music, high-fiving people. Really? Because I'm a lucky guy. As a matter of fact, I'm the luckiest guy in the world. Nobody could have this kind of luck where this madman almost cuts me off but doesn't hit me. That's my new story. Now, what happens at the end of that exit? He carries on in his life, whatever his life is. And sometimes people go, Pat, well, what's the truth? Doesn't matter what his truth is. What matters is my truth. That's it. And we think this world is like a binary world based on solid, sound truth. Rarely is there any solid, sound
There's
truth.
no truth. Yeah.
One of the things that's just screaming at me, Pat, is the word, and maybe help us men who use this and get in fights because we're just non-empathetic in some ways, guilty, is the victim mentality, right? Mm-hmm. It's things happen to us that are out of our control. And I think I had a shift in my mindset. I had mentors that really helped me remap that thought process. You know, what's your advice to those who maybe have that mentality but don't know how to recognize it?
Yeah.
Can I add a little bit, just a second before you? I think most people in that don't even realize that they are in that state. Every victim I know is absolutely the opposite, right? So, I mean, I'd love to hear but I just, the fact that they're very rarely aware that they're a victim is super interesting to me.
And then and you bring up a good point. All change starts with awareness and truth, and it becomes synonymous, right? What is your current truth? And you know, so this is one thing I deal with guys a lot, where we'll spend weeks getting to their truth because they're too embarrassed to talk about their facts of their life. But just know, any sustained change has to have an awareness around it and has to come from wherever you're at. Doesn't matter how bad you're at, how bad it is, wherever you're at, right? Yeah. So, how does this go? How do you create this awareness, right? About your current reality. So, ask it in a straight question, Frank.
How would you like me to ask you a straight question? Like,
just go ahead. Just
surrounding victim mentality.
Yeah, how do you get rid of a victim mentality? Or
how
overcome?
How do you recognize that I have a victim mentality, and how do I start shifting that mindset into something that I can control? So
there's two guys in this world. Again, I'll pick on guys, right? There's those that lead a circumstantial life, and those that lead an intentional life. And again, this isn't a binary state, meaning that you may lead a very intentional life in your business and your work, but over here in your health and fitness, very circumstantial. Intentional, meaning that you're very clear on the outcome. You identify clearly the actions that are necessary to produce that result. You engage the behaviors that create the environment to execute the action. So the difference between behavior and an action is, I don't know, I got to write 10 pages of copy every morning. A behavior is I have to eliminate any procrastination from the moment I get up in the morning, so that I write the damn copy, so that I move along to produce the end result that I want. That's being intentional, getting clear on the outcome, the actions to produce it, and the behaviors that wrap it all up. A circumstantial life is, I couldn't write the copy because my kid was up all last night and I didn't sleep very well, so I was just too tired to think straight. You're now subject to your circumstances. Follow me on that? I couldn't go to the gym today because my dog ate my left sneaker and I don't have another pair of sneakers, right? You're now making decisions based on circumstances. Now, are there circumstances that are outside of our control? Every day, all the time. That's life, right? Mm-hmm. However, we get to choose how we respond to all circumstances. And living an intentional life takes into account that the circumstances are not necessarily in alignment with what we want. And I have a partner who's a Navy SEAL, and we've had great deep talks on this, something similar to this, but all really is more around the concept of chaos. How do the Navy SEALs have such a ruthlessly successful record in everything they do when most of the time they're surrounded with chaos? Because chaos will shut most people down. Chaos brings in the unknown brings in fears build up, and we start pulling back, right? And his answer was this: our plan was never built on the known. Our plan is built on the unknown, meaning that we don't count on circumstances. We count on how we can respond to all circumstances, and we build that plan. Whereas most people do the exact opposite. They look at how much money they have, how much time they have, how much knowledge they have, how much expertise they have, what resources they have, and they build a plan on all that kind of stuff. Then the second one of them is missing, they're screwed. They're dead in the water. See the difference there? So chaos, which is just unknown, right? And circumstances that are not predictable, right? It's impossible to succeed there if you lead a circumstantial life, because every decision will be influenced by the next circumstance. And the chances that that's in alignment with what you wanted in the first place would just be a shot in the dark, right? That help answer that?
Yes. The short answer is yes, it does.
Yeah.
I have a couple of friends that are SEALs as well, and it seemed like they always had this one answer that seems to be relatively congruent, because just like you said, they deal in chaos, right? All hell is breaking loose around them. I mean, and I guess in a lot of times in our lives we feel like that too, right? Like sometimes all hell is breaking loose, and so the one thing that I always took away from that conversation was like, what do you do? And they just broke it down to the smallest common denominator, which is like, what is the next best move? They're not thinking about, way ahead or anything like that. They just break it down like, what is the next thing I got to do to get me to where I ultimately want to be? Do you find that to be the case as well?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because it brings up a whole nother talking point here. So let's extrapolate that out. Now, that the only way you could decide the next best thing is you still have to have identified an end result.
Right. Fair. Yes.
So let's just be fair. They still have a goal. They still have an outcome. They still have a mission to accomplish. So look at this as a ladder, okay? And there's rungs on the ladder. The goal, the outcome is always at the top of the ladder. Sometimes though, it's beyond the cloud line. Like we can't see it. It just ain't there. You hear all the time, you got to focus on your goals, focus on your results, focus on that. And the answer is that couldn't be further from the truth, and it serves you in no way. You have to know where you're headed so you can, build a ladder, put the rungs in a ladder. But to your SEALs buddies' comment, the focus has always got to be on the next rung. You start looking up there, you won't even reach the next rung. You're looking past where, if you got to grab the rung, but your focus is up there, it's impossible to get that rung, right? So you're focusing on the wrong part. So the rule is, right, we're not accountable. Take that back. We can't always affect the results, but we can affect the actions necessary to produce the results. So that's where our focus has to be.
Right.
Now, if we do the exact actions perfectly the entire time, will we always get the results? Sometimes we won't, right?
Sometimes we get better.
Sometimes we'll get better.
Yeah.
Right? But our focus has got to be on the part that we can control, which is the actions necessary to produce the result. And that discussion you just shared, Mike, was simple that, hey, we know what we have to do. So we focus on the very next step and we don't waver from that. So it's brilliant in his opinion there.
I got a question for you. Like being in the consulting side of the business, working with some high functioning, predictive mavericks, like people who are always going 1,000 miles an hour. I'm always struggling with dealing with people with pride and ego, and everybody's kind of giving them the same advice, but they continue to think, no, I know what I need to do. I have the right answer. I'm assuming that you don't have 100% success rate with working with specific individuals, because they tend to be the roadblock to the next, the grass is greener on the other side kind of, analogy. How have you kind of approached people where you're giving them all the tools to succeed, yet pride and ego continue to get in their way? Do you just kind of like, hey man, off you go? Or is there an actual thing you can say that kind of just breaks them out of that?
Yeah, I don't know if there's one thing, but I'll share the process, right? So pride and ego get a bad rap. They aren't necessarily a bad thing, right? Like, man, if I'm on a team and this team's got a big challenge in front of them, I want a few egotistical people with me. I want people that are ruthlessly confident in what they do. Now, there's a difference between confidence and call it like arrogance, narcissism in that space there. We'll divide the two, right? Ruthlessly confident means you got it. You got it. And you're still open to learning. You're always got that one ear for that next best little tip, right? You know you got it. You don't doubt you for a second. But shit, if there's something to be learned, I'll learn it. Whereas arrogance and narcissism cross over into, I got it and nobody can teach me a thing. That's dangerous.
Yeah.
That's problematic, right? Now, back in like the Navy SEALs, they extremely confident. And they even say that confidence is just one of the core attributes of being a Navy SEAL on a mission. And if you lack it, you can't come. Because you'll question yourself, you'll question authority, you'll question someone, you'll doubt something, you'll pause in your decision making, and you'll get yourself killed or someone else. You've got to be ruthlessly sound there, right? And open to always learning something, right? So now let's go back to dealing with that type of personality. That person right there is protecting themselves. And we have to appreciate they wouldn't be here in front of us asking for help if they could get on their own what they seek. And we have to hammer that home, right? That you're here because you can't do it on your own. If we can't get past that, right, then it's a waste of our time. But then I go right into the very, very, what I call it's evidence-based performance. So let's go. What is the result we desire? What are your current behaviors and actions? And what I do is I show them the misalignment in who they currently are being and who they want to be. They don't know that I'm going to compare their current them to the outcomes they want, but I said, what do you want? I want this. What's your current behaviors and actions every day? Let's look at those. Now, what are the behaviors and actions required to produce these specific results? Okay, bam. We pull these together. We see, wow, we got some things that are out of alignment here, way out of alignment. And if an action's out of alignment, it's because there's a behavior that's out of alignment. Actions are a result of your behaviors, your kind of who you are. Does that make sense? So I don't have to sell them on it. I let them show me. Yeah, where the problem is. But the part that gets past the ego is guys, particularly, like to fix shit.
Yeah.
And we just give them back something they can fix. It's mechanical and it's very evidence-based and trackable and measurable. So like, and I explain this, and this is just a fact of like all the world of human behavior and mindset, right? People complicate the crap out of it. Human behavior is ruthlessly predictable. It really is. It's buttons and it's levers. It gets complicated when we bring too much mind into it. And we tend to try to solve behavior problems with mindset solutions. And it couldn't be more ass backwards, right? Mindset, reflection, lag indicator of belief system. So if you want to change your mind, you got to change a belief. I said, hey, Mike, you got to run 26-mile marathon in 6 months. You'd be like, hell no, Pat, I don't run. Can't do it. Ain't happening. And you'd be right. And somebody said, well, Mike's got a really shitty attitude. He's got to fix that mindset. He can do it. Whoa. Well, Mike, if you don't believe there's any chance of you doing it, then your behavior will be a function of your beliefs. We can't outperform our belief system. This is the piece that a lot of people try to step over. Doesn't matter our vision board, our incantations, or any of that crap. If we believe differently, we cannot outperform our belief system. Like Henry Ford, you believe you can, or you believe you can't. Either way, you're right. He's dead on, right? So I don't try to get Mike to change his mindset. I'll go to work on his beliefs. And once you believe it's possible, not that you'll do it, but that it's possible, now I got you. Now you'll be inspired to lean into this thing. And that's the other thing. We don't need guarantees. We always want the guarantee in life. We just need to fundamentally know that what we want is possible. It's all the human soul needs to go all in. Is it possible? Right?
I agree. I think the one common denominator of every person on earth, no matter what, is that everybody wants better, right? Everybody wants to better for themselves in some way, some capacity, or whatever. So let's talk to the common guy, because I know that you deal with a lot of high achievers, but let's talk to the common guy out there, because I don't know the stats, but I know it's high. Most guys, what's that saying? Lives a quiet life of desperation, right? Most guys feel stuck in their job, and they know that this isn't their purpose, but they're kind of stuck in the hamster wheel and have to pay the bills because they got to put their kids through whatever the case is, but they want more. So, we call them strivers, right? But they don't know how to get out of that hamster wheel. What would be your first advice to them?
Can we go down a path of tough love here for a moment?
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
Good. And everybody know that. Listen to this, right? And I don't judge anybody. Actually, everything I do comes from a position of love. I want to see everybody fucking do better. Okay. I genuinely do. Right. But appreciate this. Wherever you are in your life, in your health and fitness, in your financial background, or your relationships, you have exactly what you deserve in life right now.
Hell yeah. I believe that.
Have to appreciate that.
Yeah.
And once we can wrap our arms around that, then we can, because now we're getting to our truth, right? So what do you mean I deserve this? Well, everything you do is produce who you are, and you get to choose everything you do. You say, I'll put it in really simple terms for guys. No guy chooses to be soft on the outside. No guy chooses to be fat. Ever in the history of man, ever has that happened. Yeah, here we are, right? I was sitting in the airport last Friday coming home. And again, I wasn't doing it from a judgment position, but I was shocked at the level of obesity walking through the airport.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, get off that conveyor belt. Take some extra steps, right? Because it's mind-boggling. I'm like, but no guy chooses that, except he does. He chooses by default, by the actions and decisions that he takes every single day. So to answer your question, Mike, if somebody wants to level up, their behaviors have got to be in alignment with the leveling up. You can't act one way and produce a different kind of result. It doesn't happen. You can't spend all night on porn and think it's not going to burn down your relationship over time. You can't drink like a freaking fish every day and don't think it's going to steal your soul, steal your fire when you show up to perform the next day. Except that you're when you drink every day, you're running. You're hiding from being you. And you got to man up to you. See, when every morning we look in the mirror, we can't outperform that person looking back at us. Impossible. And until we're ready, willing to accept that and start leveling that man up or that woman up, nothing's going to change. We can bitch and complain about the president and the economy and all this other stuff that's going on. Anybody can create or have anything they want in this world right now. It's just, it happens to be that abundant a world. And if somebody's just sitting there, again, appreciate it. I know where you're at, and I love you. So hear my words. Right now, you don't deserve it, but you can choose to deserve it. But it starts with changing you. I would go through every part of my life. Am I leveling up? Am I being the man I'm fully capable of being, or the woman I'm fully capable of being in this area of my life? Am I showing up as a husband, as a dad, as a wife? Right? Am I doing? If I want to start my own business, right? Am I doing the extra 4 hours a day after my 8-hour shift, doing the homework, the studying, practicing, getting ready to launch that business? Or am I just getting lost on YouTube and whining about the guy with the freaking Lamborghini and bullshitting about why he shouldn't show his Lamborghini? Am I that guy? Right? Yeah. There's what we call karma credit in this world, right? And we produce positive energy or negative energy in everything that we do. Every freaking thought is loaded with energy. And this is what builds our credit, right? So when we start at the high end, called like joy, appreciation, freedom, love, passion, positive expectations and beliefs, hopefulness, right? Those are all positive things. We're building up our positive credit. We kind of level out right at contentment. And then we drop into boredom. Beneath that is pessimism. Then comes frustration and irritation and disappointment. And it snowballs down to like blame and anger and hatred, jealousy. All of these other things snowball, right? And there's some people that spend most of their day on the bottom end of that karma credit scale, collecting all this bad energy, putting it out to the world and getting back exactly what they asked for, right? Yeah. The same shit back in their lives. So specifically, if you're that person and you've been fighting this and you want something more for you, appreciate that it has to start with you. And you've got to come to your reality, your truth, how you operate your life. The thoughts, from the thoughts to the behaviors to the actions, you've got to look at every aspect of your life. And as you level up those areas of your life, everything else will level. It cannot not raise up. There's universal laws that you cannot define. That's one of them right there.
One thing you were saying, Pat, in the beginning was, you got to attach a bigger emotional attachment to positive habits. Have you don't come off as a guy who watches a lot of TV or movies. If you're, I was correct. My assumptions are quite accurate. But the movie The Whale, have you heard about the movie The Whale?
No.
Brendan Fraser won an Academy Award for it. It's about this obese gentleman, teaches class virtually, and he's deathly, like morbidly obese. Highly recommend the movie, but it was such a real thing, right? And he was challenged with like dying and not being a father and all these other things. And it, to someone who's maybe going through that type of, mental block, right? He's eating a bucket of fried chicken, knowing this is only accelerating his death. Even the thought of being able to live just a bit longer for his daughter wasn't enough for him. For those who are really challenged with having even your own death not being a good enough reason, what advice do you have to people who are really just struggling with that one big thing in their life?
Yeah, and that would be an extreme when your own death is not enough for you. And I'll be honest with you, at that point, you need a highly trained therapist to intervene. Yeah. So I'm just being honest, right? So that goes beyond the scope of there are mental disorders that step outside of the scope of what we're talking about. And if your daughter or your own death is not enough for you, right, then you probably have crossed over into that category. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes.
So this world that we're talking about is not therapeutic in any way. It's actually a bully way to create change in your sustained change in your life, right? And it works for anybody and everybody up and until there are genuine clinical mental disorders involved, right? Now, that's not giving anybody permission to say, oh, that must be me, and give you something to die back on, right? Because I'll tell you, that is a hard path, I'm not going to lie. I'm giving you a much easier path to salvation here. So, meaning, there's two things here that create that aid in creating sustained change, right? And meaning is one of them. And it's something that oftentimes, even as entrepreneurs, business owners, we lose sight of a bit, right? If the meaning means enough, we will not perform. Rarely do we mean enough for the meaning to mean enough. It's got to be bigger than us, right? There's buckets we have of basic human needs and, our own need for significance and connection, all that kind of stuff. That's all good. But we also have much greater callings being connected to something bigger than us. So let me just give you a little example here, how impactful meaning is, right? Let's just say, Mike, what's your, we'll start here, Mike. You and I are walking down the street, okay? And we're just having a conversation. We come up, there's a burning house on the left. There's fire trucks, spraying water, all that kind of stuff going on. And I want to see what Mike's made. I'm going to challenge him here. Mike, I give you $1,000, brother, if you run into the kitchen and fill this glass of water. And you're like, Pat, this is moronic. Like, no. And I'm like, all right, how about $10,000? I'm going to find your price point. And you're like, no. I'm like, how about $1 million, Mike? You're like, Pat, I didn't even think about the money because my kids, my life, everything means more than the money. And it's an important takeaway here. Money comes with no meaning. Plant that over here for a second. Money is meaningless. So yes. Come back to the scenario. So there's nothing I can do, Mike, to get you to run into this burning house. Because just like, that's stupid, right? What's your daughter's name? Your 6-year-old?
Emma.
Okay. Same scenario, same burning house, same fire trucks. The only difference in this scenario is you hear Emma screaming at the top of her lungs for you. And you know damn well there's a moment of time to save her, and there's no way she's getting out without you going in to save her. Nothing would stop you from going in and saving Emma at that time.
Correct.
Same circumstance, different meaning. One, it was impossible to take the action. The other one, impossible not to take the action. Now, it's an extreme example, but it shows you the influence that meaning has on our decision-making and action-taking, right? So when we set goals and all we do is pick goals, oftentimes based on someone else's goals, right? And we don't ask ourselves an important question: what is the result of the result? Then we never attach to meaning. And when the going gets tough, and the going always gets tough, then we get challenged to do the hard work. When we're no longer in that motivated, excited state, which is that's an uncommon state. That's not a common state. It's like running your car on nitrous. The car doesn't run on nitrous all day long. It runs in just a little burst, right? That's how motivation is supposed to exist in our lives. But we become we become just addicted to needing motivation to perform, and then we're back to a circumstantial life. When we have meaning, that fire comes from inside. Now we're inspired because there's something bigger. I explained this to my daughter. She was 18 years old, working. She's still in college, she's going to school, and working at some sort of like dairy store, grinder store, right? And she was telling me how much she can't stand. She hates working, right? I said, okay, watch how just a little tweak here made all the difference in the world. I said, so how does that make you feel? She was, I almost get angry every time I go in. I'm like, all right. So how do you show up? And she's like, well, kind of in a shitty mood. I'm like, yeah. How good are you at your job when you're in a shitty mood? You don't think that energy affects your coworkers and your clients, your customers coming up to greet you? She was, I guess it does. I'm like, yeah, of course it does. I said, what if you were in a good mood? She was, why would I be in a good mood about working? What if you ask yourself a different question? Instead of saying, oh, I got to go to work, why don't you see work? Ask yourself, what does work do for you? And I'm like, Sam, why do you work? She goes, well, so I have money. I'm like, what good is the money? Well, I get to go out. I get to do this. I get to hang out with my friend. And I'm like, yeah, keep going. And we got to where it makes her feel independent. Boom, feeling. And that's where emotions are hiding in the feeling, right? I said, okay. So instead of hating on work, what if we could appreciate work? Because it allows you to have what you want. It enables you to get exactly what you want. And once you can connect that, you can be grateful for the opportunity to do something that you don't like to do. And the moment you're grateful for it, that energy changes everything. You will be better at it. You'll service the people around you at a higher level. And now you'll, by default, enjoy it more. And the more you enjoy it, the more grateful for it, you'll probably get rewarded more. It'll give you more of what you wanted in the first place, and it just spirals up. See how that works? The exact opposite. You show up, you're being an ass at work. You have an attitude. Customers fire back that energy, and before long, customers are complaining about you. You're complaining about them. You're getting scolded and reprimanded. Before long, you're out of a job. All because of how you chose to show up and the meaning you attach to it. See how powerful that is? Right? And kids can understand that, Mike. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, yep, you're muted, so I can just dive in. Maybe that's the sound that we heard.
Sorry about that.
There we go. His mouth was moving like a mannequin.
Nothing was heard my daughter over there playing her guitar. So if you heard that or not, I got to stop that real quick. But that's one of her purposes. But I get that 100% because I talked to my wife about that quite a bit. About it's not what you're doing that is the way. It's like, you know what I mean, the purpose of it. Just like you said, right? What is it within the process that you could find that? Gosh, how do I say this? I'm stumbling on myself right now. That creates that purpose. Does that even fucking make sense?
No, that's cool.
The way you look at me, it really we'll edit that shit out.
As he's talking, he's confused. So
while you're thinking about that,
hold on a second. Can I just stay 1 second here because I want to get my daughter to stop playing the guitar real quick because she's in the background. Hold on 1 second.
So one of those, are we allowed to do this without Mike?
Sure. We'll just put a little smiley face around here when we edit the video out.
No, you want waveform or it don't matter?
Yeah,
Fucking go.
Boom.
I'm here.
All right. So one of the guru things that is misleading as can be, love what you do and do what you love. But it's misleading because it lacks context, right? That would imply that, and my kids, all kids start out the same way. Man, I don't know what I love to do. I'm like, you're looking at this one the wrong way. Because rarely do you love everything you do. And I think you guys would agree with that as well. There's certain things we love, and there's certain things we can't stand doing, but we know it's part of it and we got to do it, right? That's just it. However, love what you do or do what you love and love what you do. That second part is what pulls it back together, right? Appreciate that what you're doing is allowing this other piece to take place. It's a rung on the ladder. It's an enabler. Without it, you wouldn't get the things you want. And once you can frame it that way, you can genuinely appreciate it. It changes everything. But it doesn't start from what do I love to do? It is in this, it's in the exact opposite. It's learning to love the things you don't love to do because they allow you to have whatever it is you're trying to get out of the other end. Follow me on that? That's the context that is lacking when you just hear that little piece.
So I'm very, very curious about that. I would love your opinion on this. Been in the education space for about 14 years. I've been on hundreds, about thousands of webinars, and my target avatar that I'm always talking to are newbie investors, mom and pops, people who are 60, 70, trying to build up their retirement, the 20 or 30-year-old who's trying to not go to college and figure out a way to make all this money. And they all struggle with mindset, but they think making money is going to solve, but they always fail to start, right? I think I have a crazy statistic. I have 100 people who buy real estate education. Less than 3% will actually open it and do something with it. It blows my mind, right? I was just in a master class. We spent 2 days so far on mindset. And I think it was done very well. But what is your opinion, dealing with, the entry-level person to the high achievers? Like, why do people struggle so much with adopting mindset first? Right? I must change my belief system before I begin. And that's and usually my failure is due to my lack of belief or not having a bigger purpose. Why is the 97% of people out there, why do you think that is?
Well, you answered your question. Why do people struggle with mindset? It's because your mindset, it's a very literal word. Your mind is set. You can't change it. You can only change your beliefs. And the mindset becomes a reflection of your beliefs. And the problem is we start with mindset. If you have just a bad attitude about real estate and you don't believe wholesaling works, I can't teach you above that. Because your belief is that no matter how hard I do this or how many mailers I send out or how many phone calls I make, this won't work for me because I've tried everything and everything has failed. That's the mindset you're talking about. But that's not a mindset problem. That's a belief problem. That person genuinely believes and this is more times than not, it's not a lack of belief in the product. It's a lack of belief in that the product will work for them. And this is an important takeaway because we're like, well, we can make a better product. Look at how great our product is. We're giving it all. It's not a product problem. Because at the end of the day, knowledge is not the hard part of this equation. So the equation is simple when it comes to results. Your capacity, which is your knowledge, your wisdom, your expertise, times your consistent behavior equals your results. There's only two variables, right? Capacity, knowledge, and expertise times your behavior equals your results, your consistent behavior. There's no other variables. I'm going to push everything out of the way and focus on consistent behavior. We'll use real estate here. There are consistent behaviors necessary to, say, get started in wholesaling houses to where you're doing consistently 2 to 3 houses a month. All three of us could write down in a plan, and the plan to be nearly identical, right? Because it's just not hard. We know what we have to do. However, if you fundamentally believe that mailing out the mailers or knocking on the doors or putting up the bandit signs won't work for you, and therefore they'll just waste your money and you'll be broke again, then you will not execute the behavior. It's impossible because our beliefs say so. So as an instructor, an educator, a coach, a mentor, our job is not about the education now. It's about getting them to believe in themselves. So I'll give you an example again, back in the gym world. We have this gym, and it's like a giant laboratory for just testing out human behavioral constructs, right? And this is a true story. This is a couple years ago, so I don't remember the guy's name, but guy comes in, and my trainers really couldn't get any headway with him. And his goal, I think he was like 80 pounds overweight, something like that. Big guy, 300 something pounds. Couch potatoes. He's in his 40s, hasn't done anything since his 20s. So kind of a typical MO, you know. And wants to support his wife in a charity race, 5K race. Wants to be able to run a 5K. Okay. And I forget, I don't know, call it 6 months. I don't remember the time, right? It was maybe a short, I don't know. But my trainers weren't getting anywhere with him. Pat, can you come and talk to, we'll call him Joe. And came and talked to Joe, asked him about his story, told me everything. And real good guy, happy, jolly, and eats and drinks too much, right? So I asked Joe a really, really, really important question. I said, Joe, you actually believe that in the next 6 months, you're going to go from couch potato to 5K runner? And answer me honestly. He goes, honestly? I go, yeah, honestly. He goes, no. I'm like, good. Remember, all change starts from truth. And as long as he acknowledged his truth, we can move it forward. So my next step is not to get him to believe he can do it, is to work towards making it possible. Because he started the same, I've tried every diet, every drug, every pill, every gym. Nothing's worked for me. And we've all heard that from so many people in our lives, right? That we're trying to help. So my goal here is not to get him to run a 5K. That is not my focus. That's the end result. I put rungs on a ladder now, right? And I focus on the next one. First rung, Joe, this week 1, I need you to walk 1 mile. Walk 1 mile every morning for the next 6 days. And you got to commit to it. And he goes, all right. And I'm like, commit to it. He's like, all right. I'm like, listen, commitment means whatever it takes, no matter what. There is nothing that will stop you from doing this. Because I say, if you miss 1 day, you're out. I'm done with you. We ain't moving forward. I'm cutting you off cold turkey. If you can't commit to 1 mile a day, then I'm wasting my time with you. Do I get a commitment, Joe? Because I can do 1 mile. I can do 1 mile a day. And of course, most people would agree to that, right? We get to the end of the week. I'm like, so what'd you learn? I can do 1 mile a day. I'm like, what'd you learn? He goes, you know, Pat, this is the first time I can remember in my adult life that I've actually committed to something and did it. I'm like, so you now believe you can follow through on a commitment? He goes, yeah. All right, let's go on to the next one. And I slowly built it up without him knowing, acknowledging week over week over week how far we're coming. What I'm doing is I'm building his belief in himself back up. And it got to a point where now we weren't there yet. And he's like, Pat, I want more. What more can we do? How fast can we go now? And it says, as soon as we see momentum, as soon as we see progress and we start, now we're re-inspiring ourselves. Like, yeah, I can actually do more. We'll start overshooting our next rung. That's how we operate, right? And it was not, and I asked him, I don't know, maybe halfway through, I'm like, Joe, do you think there's any chance we're going to do this? He goes, Pat, there's no chance we're not going to do this. And at this point, I don't even think we actually started the real running yet, And no doubt by the time we came up, he ran the 5K. Now, it was slow, but he didn't put timelines on this goal here, right? It was just, I got to run a 5K. And he knocked it out, right? And it had nothing to do with the goal. It had everything to do with the steps required to produce the goal and reestablishing a belief in him that he can do what he says he's going to do. Now I was ruthless on this guy. And there's another little scale we use or kind of pressure point, and it's using pain to motivate action, right? There's a natural scale we have of pain. When the pain of staying the same finally gets heavier than the pain of perceived change, we'll take action. We don't have a choice. It's in our biology to move, right? And I got his pain points, and I just kept turning up them higher and higher and higher. I let him know from day one, the second you don't show up, the second you let me down, I'm out. I'm the last thing you got. I'm out. And I kept dangling that out in front of him. And I started dangling out his relationship with his wife, right? How can you expect your wife to be proud of you if you look in the damn mirror and you ain't proud of you? Let's work at being proud. Let's look at when you wake up in the morning, you like the guy looking back at you, right? Start turning up the temperature here, right? We respond, by the way, males respond to that kind of pressure pretty well, but it's true. Yeah, it's very, and you get this with kids, and you've heard it, kids don't remember what you say, they remember what you do, but they don't remember what you do. The only things kids recall is how you make them feel. That's the only recollection of our entire history of raising them. How did mom and dad make me feel growing up? That's all they remember, right? And as much as they don't listen to a word we say at times, they tend to emulate our actions. When you start calling this out to guys with kids and even moms with kids, right? And they become aware that that's a little micro recorder over there recording every single thing I do. And likely it's going to emulate it. Child. Crazy, right?
Yeah. One of the things that were just said, and I'll pass this back to you, Mike, and you agree or disagree, but I feel like, in order to receive what you want, you have to look at what type of person you need to become. I think there's a lot of value in that and a lot of accountability there, because I feel like so many people think, I deserve to be rich. I need these things, but are you that person who is going to receive that bounty? Have you become that person yet? Are you going to work hard? Are you going to be the one that's first up, last to leave? All of these habits and the beliefs in order to receive that. I think that's such a powerful way to approach kind of your mindset. Maybe we shouldn't use mindset anymore. It's more about your belief system. I like that you said that. That helps shift. I learned so much from your advice today, Pat. And I feel like so many people who are listening to this at the cusp of starting something or changing something. I hope you're hearing this in a different way today. I know that you've probably been told this in every which color of the rainbow, but I hope today you're hearing it differently.
Let me share a piece of what you just said, right? Giving and receiving, right? Somebody who deal with a lot of men and women who want love in their life, right? And I'm like, okay, I get it. And they're moving on in their time. Like, why don't you think you have exactly who you're looking for? And especially women will always say there's no good guys anymore, right? And guys will just say that all women are batshit crazy, right? Okay, good. So I stopped right there. So listen, man, if you want somebody to love you dearly, you got to become a lovable person, and you don't even love you right now. Mm-hmm. So if you want this to change, let's you and I write down all the characteristics of a person you would be in love with, and start being that fucking person. And then watch what happens around you. That goes first. So we've heard all our lives, right? Be, do, have, be, do, have. In order to have this relationship, we've got to do these things. In order to do these things, we've got to become this person. We always want to have it. We say, if I only had that, then I'd become. It doesn't work that way. You've got to become the person that can do those things to have that relationship or have that wealth or that abundance or that healthy body, right? You don't get a healthy body and change who you are. You don't get a healthy body and then become disciplined or committed or focused. You get a healthy body by, getting dirty in the front and getting bloodied up and doing the hard work and earning and deserving a healthy body. But you become someone different in that process. And that goes back to don't focus on the results. Focus on the actions necessary to produce those results. You may not believe wholly in yourself right now, but if you create the actions that are in alignment with the results and just start focusing just on the actions, you will build back that self-belief. You'll earn the right to believe in you. You'll earn the right to look in the mirror in the morning and be like, all right, I ain't where I want to be yet. I'm fucking proud how far I came so far. I'm getting at it today. Right? Nobody else can do it for you. This is something that we all have to appreciate. Right? Ain't nobody else coming in to save us. Right? It's just not happening. We got to do the work. We got to make the decisions.
We do, and and also feel as if we hinder momentum a lot, or a lot of people do, right? When you're starting to get some momentum, and then you'll go out and have a drink with the boys, or you're doing some shit that is not conducive to what you really want out of your life, and then you kind of have to take that 3 steps back, which sometimes is kind of necessary. But momentum, and I know we touched upon on this earlier, is such a powerful thing, and lack of momentum is a powerful thing as well, right? So. Um, I love the conversation you're saying and the mindset. Well, I keep saying mindset, the habits that it takes to get to your goal one step at a time.
So to your point, Mike, momentum is a required form of energy to go anywhere in life. It's like you take a car, any car, doesn't matter, with its fixed amount of horsepower. It doesn't go 0 to full speed upon start. Every inch down the road, right, it increases its velocity with a fixed amount of mass, which collectively equal our momentum. And that momentum then gets added to the current horsepower, and then it goes a little faster, a little further. It has no more momentum added to the same amount of horsepower, and it builds up. Well, entrepreneurs, right, or wannabe entrepreneurs, we take a different path. We get motivated and excited by some external event. We have all this energy. We go kicking out the door, man. We're flying along. Then that motivation wears off, right? And we don't have the juice, the energy to do the hard stuff. See, here's something we have to appreciate about our emotions. And this is why it's so, back to EQ, why it's so important, right? When you're in a high emotion, by default, will make things better than they are, which at times is good, right? And when we're in a low emotion, we'll by default make things worse than they are. That's why they say never make an important decision in an elevated state of emotion, right? As our emotions go up, our intelligence goes down. That's why when somebody wants to sell you something, they first get you motivated and inspired and jacked up, because then you'll make it seem even better to yourself and you'll buy that shit in the moment, right? There's a game, you both know, that go along with all that, right? But the same stuff carries out in life. When we get this new idea, we're inspired, we're doing all the study, homework. 2 weeks later, right, when our plan was built on the fuel of motivation, and that motivation is run out, we're dead in the water. And now we're down. We're not back to plateau. We're down below. Now we're seeing things worse than they were. Like, oh, I didn't realize there was so much competition. Didn't realize there was so much risk. Didn't realize it was cost so much. Didn't realize it's going to be so much work, so much time. I'm not good enough. I don't know enough, right? And then we stumble and fumble and we quit. And then we wallow until something else motivates us at some point. But to your point, it's why people spill out or peel off years of their lives getting nowhere, because they keep starting and they start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, and it's exhausting. And this is one thing I'll make everyone aware, because everybody's aware, like we've all been through this in some context, right? But here's the thing: every single time we go through that cycle, one of those times it will be our last time, and we will not have what it takes to start one more time. So every time we accept stopping, we take the risk of never restarting.
That's a good one, man.
We're out. So every shot is possibly our last shot. Think about that.
I got to tell you, Pat, first of all, man, thank you so much for cutting out time today. And, I've paid tens of thousands of dollars for personal coaches, business coaches. And I feel like this was almost like a masterclass or a coaching for us. like through my head, I'm one of those things as I'm interviewing people and talking to people, I'm constantly seeing how this applies to my life. What are things that I can immediately do, right? I'm going to eat the same medicine I'm trying to feed people who are listening to this and trying to hit that next level. And I my biggest thing is track and map out your week highs and lows and remap it. That's such a unique way of approaching kind of that mind, the belief system that you're trying to shift, right? And I like the rungs of a ladder. So many of us are trying to, we pay you this much money. I want the result today, tomorrow, yesterday. And that's such a wrong belief system going in. That's why you have, you're not managing your expectations correctly. And I love, there's so many things going on in my life right now that, like what you talked about today, has such positive impact. It's like that one time I'm hearing it differently. That's why I said what I said earlier. And man, I want to thank you, because this is definitely something I'm going to bring back to my wife. I go through therapy. I want to talk to my therapist about this as well, just to kind of, make these longer lasting habits. And I want to be able to just, if anybody else is going through this tough journey, you're not alone. I'm going through things as well. Yes, I'm happy, but there are so many things I can still work on and improve. So, I got a lot out of this. Mike, how about you, man?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think everybody's going through something, right? So I mean, I think this applies to everybody. Right. Absolutely, man. So we can't escape that. And yeah, I appreciate you, Patrick, but we didn't give you the opportunity to highlight things that you're excited about, things you're working on.
Yeah, let's do that.
Now, brother. So what's what are things that you're working right now that you're excited about?
Yeah, so we're all in on a program right now. It's called the Elite Edge Experience, and we have an Elite Edge virtual experience. And the two, one's a live event, and one's a virtual 12-week run up to the live event. So what that comes down to is creating a brotherhood of accountability, and that's a piece we didn't bring up earlier. But accountability is like an insurance program. If all else fails, if you have the right people holding you accountable, no matter how bad you screw up, you'll still move forward. And that's the essence of accountability. And that's exactly why spouses make terrible accountability partners, friends, right? Partners in business, because we're too nice to each other. Accountability has got to be anchored in leverage. And leverage is most powerful when it's a form of pain, when there's something on the line. So, Elite Edge, a big part of it is creating a high level of accountability amongst our brotherhood. The way everything we talked about today is built into this. We create very specific outcomes over a course of period of time, put in alignment the behaviors necessary to execute the action to achieve, and then add a ruthless level of accountability. And a lot of it's influenced by my Navy SEAL partners and just kind of how regimented they are and what they do in execution, right? So how do we have the same level of success? And the cool thing about it is so brilliantly effective that I stand behind it at a really, really high level. I mean, you can come in and spend an entire month with us, and if it turns out not to be everything you expected to be and more, I'll just refund you your entire tuition, right? It just means somehow I didn't do my job to serve you, and I accept that responsibility 100%, right? But when people, so Newton's second law in physics, right? When a body in motion tends to stay in motion in a straight line, and people forget that, right? We're on a certain trajectory. That trajectory we're on, body in motion, stays in motion, a straight line until an opposing force knocks it off that trajectory. And that's what I like to see this program as, right? This changes the trajectory they're on, but we don't, not randomly. We pick the new one very specifically. And it's not just in wealth or health, relationships. It's all areas of our lives. I'm a firm believer that you can't be a rock star over here and suck over here, because every aspect of our lives affects and infects the other areas of our life. And I've been married 30 years now, right? And to this day, if my wife and I are off, it affects every area of my life. I don't show up well at work until my wife and I get our stuff back on plane. That's just how I am, And I see people that, and again, not judgmental, but sometimes a tough love is good for people. I see people that make a lot of money, yet their health is brutally terrible. That's a choice they make. And there's reasons why they're dropping the ball there. And they're like, but he does so good money. Well, think about how much better he could do. And also think about the impact that he has on others. There's some people that are learning to believe that you can let your health go to hell and make money at the same time. And that's a good thing, right? Yeah. That's not a good message to pass on. But anyways, program, the way the program works is people sign up to have a one-on-one consultation with me. We go through everything they're trying to do, including their challenges and why they don't have what they want in their life at this point, right? So I can put together a very specific plan. So everything's done uniquely for them. But then we all work together in a brotherhood. And every week we get together, and then it goes down to a daily tracking, because you mentioned tracking, Frank, right? We have, it sounds kind of weird, but a personalized KPI dashboard for our own behaviors that we need to alter in order to execute what we need to execute, right? And then there's a little point system, and those point systems get brought back each week. So we add a little gamification to it, right? Just to up the level a little, right? So it's kind of neat how it all works out. But the end result is to create sustained change in behavior to produce very specific changes, results, outcomes that we want in our lives. That's the essence of what we do.
Dude, you had me at KPIs, brother. The fact that you have gamified, physical growth or personal growth is cool. I'm always about data. It's very cool how you have done that. So where can people go to get more information about the Elite Edge experience and join this brotherhood?
Yeah, so I could give you a link if you want to share that with this.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'll do that if that works.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, drop the link in here. We'll also have it in the description so people can find out more. And keep in mind, depending on when people listen to this, it could be months later. Make sure we're giving out a link that's still good to go in a couple of months, couple of weeks. Great.
It won't be months.
You can always find me on Facebook. You can always find me on Instagram. I'm easy to get a hold of. I respond well to DMs. And just say, hey, Pat, just want to have a conversation. And then all I'll do is I'll send you back a schedule link, and we'll just schedule. It's just a conversation, not a sales pitch. It's just, and quite frankly, all I do in the conversation, we go through it, see where we're at, and then I just ask you to make a decision. That's all. I do not like indecisiveness. Right?
So thanks for sharing that link, Patrick. We'll actually put it in the description. It's a little bit longer, so it's like ABCD, dash 1, 2, 3.
That's what I was thinking.
We'll just share it at the bottom. The easiest thing for you guys to click, get more info. But thank you again. This has been quite invaluable for myself personally, and I'm sure a few others out there who are listening are like, holy crap. The veil has been lifted, and they're going to be hopefully making the changes that they need. So I'm excited. Thank you again so much, Mike. Any closing remarks?
That's it, man. Appreciate you, Pat.
Thank you guys so much.
And I'll just share this last word. Everybody's got shit in their lives.
Yep.
And you can tell me everything you got, and I'm going to show you somebody's got 10 times that amount of shit. Right? Know that it's all solvable. That no matter what your situation is, you're in control of making it better. Right? Just buttons and levers. Human behavior is really predictable. Get certain things in alignment, and you can change any situation you're in for the better. Peace, guys.
Awesome, brother. Peace
Love
out.
Thank you guys so much. Cheers.
So that's a wrap. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you received value from this episode. If so, please share this podcast with your friends so we can help more people just like you. Also, hook up with us on Facebook, IG, and YouTube at REIL Talks. That's REIL Talks. So until next time, keep it cool and keep it real.